You are watching the English news of Bình Phước Radio, television, and newspaper. You are with me, Wang, and let's take a look at the top stories. Socio-economic recovery and development program. Promoting reading culture and lifelong learning. Top leader attends launch of support campaign for Typhoon Yagi victims. And later on, top leaders of Vietnam and Laos hold talks in Hanoi. Bình Phước Province has issued a directive to enhance policies, remove barriers, and unlock resources to accelerate economic and social development. This initiative is part of the broader effort to implement the Recovery and Development Program in alignment with the resolutions of the 15th National Assembly.
To implement this program, the chairwoman of the Bình Phước Provincial People's Committee instructed the Tax Department, Department of Finance, Department of Natural Resources and Environment, and relevant agencies to apply measures such as extending deadlines for tax payments and land use fees, reducing value-added tax rates, and cutting out costs. The province is also encouraging local banks to continue reducing expenses, improving technology to allow for lower interest rates, and expanding access to credit for individuals and businesses. Credit institutions are urged to prioritize lending to the production and business sectors, key economic drivers and priority areas, ensuring easier access to capital for the public and enterprises. The chairwoman further directed departments and agencies to expedite the disbursement of public investment funds, using public investment to stimulate private investment and promote public-private partnerships. Emphasis was placed on strengthening financial and budget discipline, maximizing saving, and reducing routine expenditures to allocate more funds for the development projects and social welfare. Additionally, there is a strong focus on boosting production, export-import activities, and expanding the domestic market.
Promoting reading culture and lifelong learning is the theme of the 2024 Lifelong Learning Week, recently launched by the Ministry of Education and Training. The event will be held from October the 1st to the 7th.
The ministry has urged provincial and municipal people's committees to adapt the event to local circumstances, promoting flexibility and creativity while optimizing resources to foster a reading culture and lifelong learning. These activities are part of the Building a Learning Society 2021-2030 initiative approved by the Prime Minister. Authorities are also encouraged to monitor progress, recognize outstanding efforts, and expand successful models that contribute to the initiative. Educational institutions are invited to organize a variety of activities such as classes, workshops, forums, and discussions on social topics, particularly those that engage staff, lecturers, students, and learners.
Bình Phước has issued a directive to enhance measures for preventing child injuries and drowning.
The provincial chairwoman has instructed relevant departments, agencies, and local authorities to continue implementing effective solutions, including raising public awareness, offering swimming lessons, and allocating necessary resources. The directive also calls for a review of safety regulations and standards in homes, communities, schools, and construction sites to prevent drowning. Stricter inspections and enforcement of legal regulations are emphasized to ensure child safety, while authorities are tasked with clarifying the responsibilities of organizations and individuals involved in drowning accidents, including cases where children have tragically lost their lives.
Let's continue our bulletin with top stories around the country. On September 10th, the Vietnam Fatherland Front launched a campaign in support of victims of Typhoon Yagi in Hanoi, with Party General Secretary and State President Tô Lâm attending.
The participants observed a minute of silence in memory of the deaths. The typhoon, the strongest to hit Vietnam in decades, and the subsequent torrential rains, floods, landslides, and bridge collapse had left 146 people dead or missing as of 1300 hours on September 10th. Addressing the event, VFF Central Committee President Do Van Chien called on individuals, organizations, and businesses, both at home and abroad, to play a part in this regard. Right at the ceremony, the VFF received more than nearly $16.5 million from agencies, organizations, and individuals to help those affected by Yagi.
Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính urged Bắc Giang province authorities to balance disaster recovery efforts with maintaining economic activity, especially in industrial zones, as the province is a key industrial hub in northern Vietnam.
Typhoon Yagi has caused approximately $12 million in damages and claimed one life in Bac Giang province to date. As the Co, Thuong and Luc Nam rivers are expected to continue flooding above warning level 3, over 4,600 military personnel and numerous vehicles have been deployed for disaster relief efforts. During his visit on September 10 to Vân Ha Commune, Viet Yen Township, where some 9,000 people have been isolated due to flooding, Prime Minister Chin urged local authorities and rescue forces to continue evacuation of residents and ensure the distribution of essential supplies. In response to the severe flooding along the Co River, he called for immediate action from Bac Giang's authorities, including mobilizing all available resources for evacuation efforts. He also called for uninterrupted electricity and telecommunications to facilitate the emergency response and the ongoing needs of residents. On the same day, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh chaired a teleconference with leaders of other northern localities, which were affected by the typhoon, to look into flood response. The leader told ministries, sectors, and localities to engage the entire political system in effectively implementing the party and state leaders' directions on the issue. He asked the Ministries of National Defense and Public Security to deploy personnel and equipment to deliver food and essential goods to flood victims, especially those in isolated areas. Lao Cai, Yen Bai, and Tuan Quang provinces were asked to control water flows from upstream areas to downstream reservoirs and dams to reduce safety risks.
General Secretary of the Lao People's Revolutionary Party Central Committee and President of Laos, Thong Lo Si Solit, along with his spouse and a high-ranking delegation, arrived in Hanoi on the morning of September 10, beginning a state visit to Vietnam from September 10 to 13. On the same day, General Secretary and President Tô Lâm chaired a welcome ceremony and held talks with the Lao leader.
The visit, which follows a state visit to Laos by Tô Lâm as President of Vietnam in July 2024, is a vivid demonstration of the great friendship, special solidarity, and faithful and pure relations between the two parties, states, and people of Vietnam and Laos. It takes place at a time when the two parties and countries are strongly implementing the resolution of each party and actively preparing for all-level congresses in the lead up to their party national congresses. Following the welcome ceremony, General Secretary and President Tô Lâm held talks with his Lao counterpart, Thong Lo Si Solit. The two leaders expressed pleasure at the significant new developments in the relationship between the two parties and countries and the results of the Vietnam-Laos comprehensive cooperation over the past time. They discussed orientations to promote cooperation in order to make the Vietnam-Laos relationship deep, practical, and effective in various areas. The leaders consented to enhance cooperation in defense and security, promote joint efforts to create breakthroughs, and improve the effectiveness of economic, cultural, and scientific technical cooperation, and others. They agreed to maintain effective information exchange and assessments on international situations, protect each other's legitimate interests in accordance with international law, including issues related to the East Sea and the sustainable use of the Mekong River's water resources. The two countries will consult, coordinate closely, and support each other effectively in international and regional issues, as well as activities at multilateral forums, they stressed.
We have more news coming up next. Let's take a look.
Defense Minister General Phan Van Giang held talks with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Washington, D.C. on September 9th, local time. The two ministers agreed to promote high-level exchanges and maintain existing dialogue and consultation mechanisms, as well as to identify areas of cooperation. The The ministers emphasized continuing to prioritize cooperation on war legacy remediation, focusing on dioxin contamination cleanup, addressing unexploded ordnance consequences, and locating and collecting Vietnamese soldiers' remains. The two sides agreed to further expand and deepen cooperation in areas. At the end of the talks, the two ministers signed the updated Vietnam-U.S. Joint Vision Statement on Defense Cooperation.
And that's it for this edition of BPTV News. Thank you very much for your watching, and we will see you next time.